Welcome to the Expert's Journey podcast, where we're all about creating your path to impact. Join your hosts, Dixie Mary Carlton from Indie Expert Publishing and Mr. Web Marketing Brad Houck, as we look at how you can grow your business and influence by leveraging your knowledge for profit. Most experts have a process, but very few have tuned it into something people can easily understand, remember, and share. A strong signature framework takes what you know and gives it clear structure, helping your audience to move from confusion through to action. In this episode of The Expert's Journey, we explore what makes a signature framework useful, memorable, and commercially valuable. We'll look at how the right framework can become more than just a diagram in your book, forming the foundation of your keynotes, workshop, courses, and consulting offers. Good morning, Dixie.
Good morning, Brad. Great to see you today. How's things?
Yeah, good, thanks. So this is a really interesting topic. Signature frameworks are real key to getting cut through in a market and making yourself stand out, because they're what makes things so easy for people to apply all that knowledge you've got.
Yes, and also they are a critical part of your IP. If you can take what you have regularly done or served up or delivered on and turn it into something that is easily recountable as a 5-step process or a Venn diagram process or a something that makes it really easy to explain to people and that they can follow through on, then you have not just a process, but you have a framework. And the framework is what gives you real value in the offerings that you have to offer.
Absolutely. So obviously the first place to start is looking at a book. So what core idea, model, or method sits underneath your book? Now, I know that working with you to write Run Towards the Flames, you kind of broke my book down to help me write it into kind of 3 steps, 3 sections. And even that can form the basis, like the start, the beginning, and the end, can form the basis of a 3-step framework that then has extra steps underneath it. It doesn't need to be really complicated, does it?
It doesn't need to be complicated. I mean, this whole thing came up for me about 5 years ago when I was doing a training program with someone who said to me, take what you do and turn it into a framework. And it was like a bolt of lightning that struck me. And I thought, okay, my process of helping people to break down what you've just said, the 3 parts to the book and the 3 parts to the chapters, and then how that all flows, and then making that the book plan, that became my trivariant framework. That's called trivariant framework because it's multiples of 3, but there's variations. So I came up with the name and I thought, yes, that works. And the naming of your framework is often the thing that makes it trademarkable. So when you are thinking about how you do something and you then say, but I have these steps. If I'm a coach, if I'm a consultant, these are the steps that I go through. This is my own checklist. How can I turn that into something that is usable to give to other people, that I can say, this is my own version of how to do this? That's a framework. And when I first learned about this, it literally hit me like a bolt of lightning, because all of a sudden I had something that I could like put into a standard solid suitcase and put a lid on it and say, this is my own, and I can take it places. And since that time, 5 years ago, I've further developed my own framework in that space, but I've taken 2 or 3 others that I work with and say, this is my IP. I have trademarked it. I have copyright over it. I have protection, but I also have the value that I could white label that, for example. And I've seen this done a couple of times with clients that I've worked with, where you can take your own framework, white label it, and on-sell it or on-license it to other people. That's what gives you real traction with the absolute wisdom and knowledge and experience that you have that is so valuable.
Absolutely. I remember when I first started in business, I was looking for help with marketing because I really just didn't know much about it. I knew about online marketing. I didn't know about offline marketing. And I remember that we used to have action coaches. I don't know if you remember action coaches, but it was a huge organization, international and in Australia. And they had all these manuals. So you could go there and talk to them, and they would bring out these manuals and say, okay, what's your problem? And I say, well, marketing. And they had one on direct marketing that they would sell you. And it was a kit, basically, with example letters you could send people and a framework you could follow. But they also had coaches who could help you implement it. So frameworks are really powerful, and you, again, licensing other people to actually deliver them can be a really great source of income if you just
Mhm.
kind of think a little bit bigger than, oh, I'll do this.
Yeah. And you need to be thinking about this when you are creating a framework. Can you make it so simple, so easy to draw on a napkin that other people can then explain it as well as you can explain it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the key to making it really powerful. So, for example, a Venn diagram that has A, B, and C, and where they interconnect gives you EDG. That's as simple as it can be. And it's not just a matter of saying, make it look pretty, make it look functional, and have many parts that move out from it. But the core of it is your framework. The core of the ABC meets EDG.
Absolutely.
A
If
framework.
you look at the most powerful business models in the world, for example, if you look at multi-level marketing, take one, that framework, everybody teaches it to the person below them and they repeat it. It's very simple. Another example, McDonald's and stores like that, where a 15-year-old can basically run a whole store because the
Yeah,
framework is so repeatable that someone very young can learn it. So there's
exactly.
everywhere if you look around you, and you can see from simple frameworks to quite complex frameworks, but they're often built on a basic core idea that it should be able to be done by this person this way. So building on that, you can look at, can your readers or the people in the room explain your framework to someone else after reading or hearing it once? And that's a really great test of how simple it is, but also how powerful it is. I've recently been working on my next book, and the framework I'm working on is dealing with how do you solve problems in a crisis situation. And it's pretty simple. Do you fight it? Do you flank it? Or do you let it burn? It's
Mm.
very repeatable, it's very easy to learn, but it becomes part of a very powerful decision-making process.
And this is where I find it fascinating. You can build an entire keynote speech or an entire podcast series around one framework. You can take it out, you can spin it out to a much wider thing than just the simple core piece of it. And I think that's what most people underestimate, is that it's not just about having a checklist. It's about how do you expand that into something that's much bigger. Often we, as coaches and as consultants, we think, oh, well, I'll just create a checklist that takes me through this process that I regularly roll out. But it is so much more than that. Developing a framework around that checklist also means making it visually powerful. And honestly, one of the best things you can do with that is, once you've worked out that you can draw it in some way, you can go from A to B to C to whatever, or the Venn diagram, or however it is that it works out. If you can then find a way to make it look interesting, then you have an additional power to it. And the best advice I can give anyone is, don't try and do that yourself on Canva. Get it done professionally by a good designer. Even if you've played with it first on Canva, and give it to them and say, now make it amazing. This is the critical part of your IP that you want to protect and make sure that you've got absolute brilliant imagery around. So always ensure that you've got the visual aspects as well as the simplicity aspects done well.
Absolutely. We've got to look at whether it's just a diagram or whether it actually helps people make decisions and take action. And that's probably the most important thing. It's easy to draw a flowchart. It's easy to come up with a system. Anybody can do it. But narrowing it down and distilling it into its key elements so that you get the repeatability, the ability to remember it easy, that's where it becomes difficult, because if you document a process, there's always thousands of steps to a process. But to peel it back to its core elements, it's worth working with someone else, or at least run it through, write a speech about it, or do a podcast episode about it, and see what sticks in your head when you do these things. Because the more you work on it, the more you can distill it. I have a few different frameworks. I have one behind me that sits on my wall all the time, which is focused, loyal, adaptable, motivation, educated, and strong, which describes firefighters. It's a simple framework, and I have other ones for digital marketing. And it depends on where you're applying them. Sometimes you can have multiple frameworks that fit within one. So you'll see people, coaches and that, who use frameworks successfully in their businesses. They might have 10 modules, then each one has a simple framework for each module. So it's really up to you how difficult you want to make it. But I always suggest you start with something that's easy. And then when you get really good at that, then maybe look at making it bigger.
Yes. And the other part of it is that then once you've got it functional and visual and tested, you then want to have a conversation with an IP specialist who can protect it. Because as we said before, there might be loads of flowcharts or Venn diagrams. You can't protect very noisy motorbike.
Can't hear it.
It's just turned up. You can't protect a concept of a Venn diagram, but you can protect your flowchart or Venn diagram, the one that has your information in it. And this is something that a lot of people do also fail to recognize, is that there is value in that. If you protect your flowchart, your system, your process, your Venn diagram, your whatever your framework is, then other people can't use it and say that it's theirs, because it becomes distinctly yours. And when you do an application for a trademark, then it is looked at quite carefully. And sometimes it'll be that you have to explain further what it is or how it's used to be able to get that protection. But you don't want to turn up to someone else's conference and see someone on stage using what effectively is your version of your framework. You want to make sure that you're really careful in this space, because as we said before, this is value for your business. The more frameworks that you have identified, chartered, trademarked, protected, the more value your entire company is worth. So
it's really hard. I mean, the saying goes, there's nothing new under the sun. And it's pretty true in a lot of ways, but there's your version of it. And sometimes what makes it unique is the stories around it and how you implement it. So leadership is leadership. Teamwork is teamwork. We all know, we see these underlying frameworks that everybody kind of talks about if you look at it across the board. But you go into the room and you hear this person's version of that framework and this person's version of the framework, and they're entirely different. So it is possible to IP them. It is possible to say, this is my way of doing this. And it's not just about tapping on that I'm a firefighter, so that's what makes it different. It's about that whole interpretation of the framework, not just the fact that it's 5 steps or 6 steps, whatever it happens to be.
And I think you also want to be thinking, and for anyone listening to this and thinking about what it is that you may have as a potential framework, there are 2 ways of considering its value to the people that you want to use it for. Does it describe something, or does it assist them to take action on something?
Absolutely, because we're looking at value, aren't we?
Yeah, so description and or action. And if it's something that gives people this is how to do this, now take the steps, that's brilliant, because that gives you an ability to say, right, you now know how to do this, go ahead, make it happen, and let's now track the feedback and the case study of that, etc. And that's another part of getting the value out of having these specific frameworks.
Yeah, I think that's a key point, because it's easy to make up a framework, okay? Anybody can do that. But to have a framework that has real value is a whole nother level of focus, because what we're saying is, if you apply this framework, it will solve this problem that's costing you this much money, or it will help you achieve this goal that is worth this much money to you. And so when you're looking at developing your framework, don't just put together a list of words because they're cool or they sound good together or you like the acronym. Think about the outcome for the person, because you're going to get the best results if you have a framework that's laid out to achieve something effectively and quickly. So if you can take that and you can do it, you'll get cut through, you'll grow your market, you'll become famous if that's what you want. But if you just put out frameworks, that's great. It's just another framework. Think about the value for the end user.
Yes, absolutely. Nailed it. So if you are thinking that you've got great content and great processes that you use for your business all the time, if you constantly stand up on stage and talk about specific ways of doing things, and you're constantly repeating the same formula, turn that into an actual recognizable, designed up, well-tested, trademark protected framework, and see how far you can take that, because that could radically change your business.
Yeah, a memorable framework doesn't just explain what you know. It helps people understand a problem, make better decisions, and take action. Your challenge this week is to turn your core idea into something your audience can remember, repeat, and use.
Yeah. And of course, we have developed a worksheet that you can work through to make sure that you nut it out properly. So make sure you go to our website for that, and the link will be on the bottom. And by all means, let us know how you're going with your frameworks. And if you need help with that, either contact Brad or myself, and let's have a conversation about how to really make those even more powerful.
Absolutely. You can find Dixie at indieexpertspublishing.com, and you can find me at bradhout.com. We're easy to find online. We'll catch you in the next episode.
And if you've enjoyed this, please remember to share it and review it. We love the feedback. Thanks. See you next week.